Guys, we're ready to get started. 98 people. That's not bad. That's really good, actually. Hold on 1 second. Make sure this is... Yeah, there we go. Okay. How you guys doing? Did you watch both the women's and the men's final? Let me know in the chat. And did you enjoy it? I think both were very entertaining in a way. The women's final was brutal, but it was interesting, to be honest. It was very interesting. I mean, I was glued to the TV watching that one, but it was brutal. It was hard to watch, but for sure was interesting. And Sinner Alcaraz is amazing. But I think some people were expecting to see another epic like the one they had at Roland Garros. But like I said in my last video, that might never happen again. That might go in history as the best match that those two guys have ever played against each other. So to expect something like that is unrealistic. It won't happen. Maybe it'll happen a few more times where they have matches like that. But like I said in the video, if one guy is up and has chances to close it out, the chances of either one not closing it out, very small, So, but we'll talk in more detail. All right, we got 175 in here. Very good. All right, so let's get started. I have a board here with different topics, okay? We're going to discuss all the topics in today's live stream, all right? We're going to try to get all the way to the bottom. And let's start off with last 7. Chat, do you know what I'm talking about when I say last 7? Let me know. Last 7. What does that mean? The cat is right there. Right there on my well, that's going to be your right, on the right, bottom right of the screen. What does it mean, last 7? Simone, where are you going, buddy? Come on, stay. He's done. He's done. All right, nobody answering what last 7 means. All right, so do you remember in the year 2023, that's where Alcaraz beat Djokovic in the Wimbledon final in that insane 5-set match where Djokovic smashed the racket on the net post. Remember that? Then they played each other in Cincinnati. And if I'm making any mistakes, please correct me in the chat. But anyway, after that, they played in Cincinnati. And Djokovic got him in a really high-quality best-of-3 match in the Cincinnati final. Alcaraz was upset after that loss. And Djokovic was on fire. Djokovic then won the US Open. Remember? Semifinals against Ben Shelton, hanging up the phone on Ben. That was super entertaining. And then he beat Medvedev in a final in straight sets, I believe. So that was 2023. Djokovic also won the ATP finals that year. But then he lost to Sinner at Davis Cup. And that changed everything. Because since then, that was the turning point. Sinner and Alcaraz have won the last 7 Grand Slams. And what I find so fascinating about this is that I never would have predicted that something like this would happen. And let's just imagine that Sinner and Alcaraz were not that good. Okay, let's say they were ranked between 10 and 20. I'm not going to compare them to other players, but let's just say that they couldn't produce the tennis that they're producing, and they're just, really good players, but ranked between 10 and 20. What would the ATP Tour look like? Well, I think Djokovic would continue to dominate. He would basically win, I wouldn't say every Grand Slam, of course not, but he would win a ton of Grand Slams. He would probably be ranked number 1 in the world. If you look at the rankings, number 2 would probably be Fritz, and then Zverev, and then so on. So I honestly envisioned this on the ATP Tour because I couldn't fathom that we're going to get players of the caliber of Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. I did not think that we're going to see this maybe ever again in my lifetime. But miraculously, we get these two guys, Sinner and Alcaraz, who are at that level for sure. How good are they going to be? Are they going to be able to match some of the records of the big three? I don't know. It's too early to say. Let's go slam by slam. But for sure, the level is sky high. But there's more. Sometimes you guys accuse me of being a Sinner fan. I don't know how that started. Maybe because I picked Sinner a couple times, but let me go through my history of who I picked since I started doing these type of videos, which is probably 3 years ago. I picked Alcaraz to beat Sinner in Indian Wells in 2024. I picked Alcaraz to beat Sinner Roland Garros 2024. That's 2 in a row where I picked Alcaraz over Sinner, okay? Then I did pick Sinner to win Wimbledon in 2024. I did pick him to win Wimbledon, but he lost to Medvedev in the quarters. I picked Djokovic to beat Sinner in the Shanghai final, and I got really flamed for that pick. I got a lot of bad comments because, there was a lot of Sinner fans in the comment sections, and they were doing the clown emojis and stuff like that. But for some reason, I thought that Djokovic could turn around this losing streak that he has to Sinner in Shanghai. The previous match they had was at the Australian Open, where Djokovic got blown off the court in the first 2 sets, and then he made the match tight. And in that Shanghai tournament, Djokovic had played well. He beat Fritz in a really tough semifinal match, and I had a feeling that Djokovic might finally beat Sinner. Best of 3, indoors. It was a really bad pick in retrospect, okay, because I realized after that match that Djokovic has a big mental block against Sinner, and you just can't beat him. Sinner is just too strong for him. He's the better player, as simple as that. So you can't call me a Sinner fan because, look, 3 times in 2024, I went against Sinner. Now, in 2025 and 2024 US Open and 2025 Australian Open, I picked Sinner, of course, to win those tournaments. I did. And how can you not? Sinner is unbelievable on hard court. But then I picked Alcaraz to win Roland Garros. And that was a little bit of a lucky pick because, of course, that could have gone both ways. And I did pick Sinner to win Wimbledon, which he did. So you can't call me a Sinner fan. And going back to the last 7 Grand Slams that were won by either Sinner or Alcaraz, in each one of these slams, something weird was happening to me after the matches, and I felt really sad for the other guy. And I had a really idiotic thought, something that I never thought would cross my mind, but I thought, why can't both of these guys win? Okay, that's a really dumb thought, but honestly, I felt so bad for Carlos yesterday. The way this guy behaves after he loses, first off, I got to give Djokovic credit because he's a gracious loser, but Alcaraz is amazing. As I said in some of my videos during the 2 weeks, the Alcaraz approach to tennis looks so healthy to me. Of course, I'm looking at it from the outside, but it looks to me like he has a very healthy approach to tennis. And the way he was clapping for Yannick yesterday after he lost, the way he was smiling, he seemed, quite honestly, in a good mood. And as a tennis player of a level that's 10,000 degrees below that, I honestly can't relate to that because I'm the exact opposite. I was talking to my mom today, and we talked about the men's final, and we reminisced where she went with me to one tournament, which was like 6 hours away in Germany, and I was already 18 and driving at that time. And I went all the way down there. We, got there the day before, and I practiced, and we spent the night, and then I lost right away in the first round. And I put the bag on my shoulder. I was all sweaty. I got into the car and I drove for 6 hours straight. It was a Peugeot 405 station wagon diesel back in the day that could go like 1,000 kilometers on one tank. So it was 600 kilometers, not miles. And I drove my poor mom for 6 hours straight because I was so upset um, after a loss. That's how I am. I get really affected by losing, and I'm just so envious of Carlos. And I respected so much the way he behaves when he loses an unbelievably important match like the Wimbledon final where he was the champion 2 years prior to that. Now, on the other hand, of course, we all felt for Yannick Sinner at Roland Garros when he lost that match. And if you go back a few weeks to the Rome final, again, Yannick Sinner, a gracious loser, complimentary to Carlos. And these guys are so great for the game of tennis. Remember, I said I thought we weren't going to get this the last 7 Grand Slams. 2 guys dominating. I thought that we're going to get a weak era, maybe like we did in the early 2000s, post Sampras pretty much. And the fact that we have these amazing players and more importantly, amazing human beings, it's a blessing. I'm so thankful. And we get to enjoy these matches. And these guys set such a great example for everyone of how to behave on a tennis court, how to lose graciously. And I think it's great. For that reason, like I said, I find myself sad after pretty much every one of these Grand Slams. And for that reason, you got to understand, I'm not an Alcaraz fan. I'm not a Sinner fan. I'm a fan of both of these guys. I like these guys equally. All right, let me take a look at the chat and let's see what's going on. 454 people in here. Listen, what's wrong with being a Sinner fan? Nothing. There's nothing wrong with it. But like, if you're doing commentary, I do think it's important to be, neutral. I mean, I've said 100 times that I'm a huge Rafa fan because I can't help it. Okay, when it comes to Rafa, it's just too strong of a fan relationship that I have. So I couldn't hide that. Okay. Plus, I wear Rafa gear and all that. So in that case, I did say I'm a Rafa fan, but generally, if you were going to analyze a match, it's best to be neutral and not be a fan of anyone. Or if you are a fan indeed, you try to keep that to yourself, Oh, that's interesting. Does Nick watch basketball? So I used to be the biggest basketball fan ever. Basketball is one of the reasons why I wanted to move to the United States. I used to play basketball. Shout out to Boris Golubovic, who was my basketball coach, a fantastic basketball player. He's also a great tennis player and also a tennis coach. He traveled with me to some tennis tournaments and coached me in tennis too. He taught me basketball, but I'm like the worst athlete you've ever seen. Back in those days, I could dunk, but it was a rarity. It required like a perfect jump and all that. And I did dunk a few times, and I do have it on camera. There's proof. I can't dunk anymore, nowhere near. My knees are horrible right now. So I used to play, and the only thing I could do somewhat decently is shoot, but I also can't dribble. And yeah, I realized when I was in college that it's probably better to stop playing basketball because one of my good friends was a Croatian guy who played for Murray State, and he was a great basketball player. He was a lot taller than me. He was like 2 meters and 4. I wouldn't be able to tell you what that is in feet, but he was a very tall guy and a great player, but he averaged like 2 minutes on the Murray State team. Murray State had always had great basketball teams. John Morant played there, and many other NBA players. So anyway, this guy's name was Peter, this Croatian guy. So, he didn't really get that many minutes at Murray State. And just to tell you his level, a good basketball player, but by no means like the star of the team. And I one day decided to play one-on-one with him. And this was so embarrassing. I got so destroyed. And it was on this day that I decided to stopped playing basketball, and I haven't really played since. But I used to be a huge fan, not only playing basketball but also watching basketball. I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan. My top three favorite players of all time are Michael Jordan, Tony Kukoc, who's from my hometown in Split, and Dennis Rodman. And so obviously I was a huge Chicago Bulls fan. And when I moved to the United States, this was when Jordan had played for the Wizards for a couple of years, and I watched every single game. So I used to watch a lot. I watched definitely more basketball than tennis back then, but for some reason I lost interest in the NBA. And listen, I'm not an expert in basketball by any means, but to my eyes, it looked like the game was different back in the day. Maybe it was a little bit tougher, um, more physical, and now it seems flashier to me. So for that reason, I lost interest, and I will watch just a game here and there occasionally, but I don't really know that much about basketball now, and I used to know absolutely everything. Let's see. Yeah, Dražen Petrovic was one of my all-time favorite players, and I'm so sad that he died because I've heard so many great players in the NBA talk about Dražen, and they said that he was like the white Jordan. I heard that so many times. Like he would like beat Jordan one-on-one. He was so good. If you go on YouTube and check out the 92 Olympics where Croatia lost in the final to the USA, the original dream team, the best dream team ever, Dražen was on that team, Toni Kukoc was on that team, and they're the only ones. Croatia was the only team that had a lead in the beginning against the USA. They ended up losing, but they made the final, got the silver medal, and you can check out some clips and see Dražen. There are other compilations of Dražen, and he was incredibly good. He could have been one of the best players in the NBA at that time, for sure, an all-star back in those days. And the NBA was incredibly competitive back then. So it just tells you how good of a player he was, and it's just so sad that he died so young. You know, it was a car accident in Germany actually, and it was so unfortunate because he didn't have to be in Europe, but he wanted to play. I think it was the qualification for the European Championships for Croatia, which they probably could have qualified without him, but he loved playing for Croatia, so he went to Europe to play that. And I think it was held in Germany or something. I'm not 100% sure on this. And that's where he was in the car. He wasn't driving, and they slammed into a truck in front of them. I think it was raining, and the visibility was very poor. And yeah, that was that. Okay, like any questions that deal with the board, we're gonna get to the board later. Okay, we're gonna get to the board later. Let me do another question here, and then we're gonna do the next question on the board. Stop lying, you're a Ben fan. I like Ben Shelton a lot. Now, one thing that I will never admit is which players I dislike, because I'm going to be honest, there are players that I dislike, but I would never ever tell you. And there are players that I like, and I will tell you who those are. So if I tell you I like a player, I truly like a player. And for sure, I like Ben. I watch a lot of Ben matches, Ben Shelton. I think he's one of the most exciting players to watch for sure. Djokovic is 24 and done. Not bad at all. Yeah, it's going to be tough for him to win another one, because the chances of him not having to go through either Alcaraz or Sinner are very low in the Grand Slam, right? So for that reason, it's going to be very, very difficult. And it's only going to get tougher, I think. Let's see. All right. Um, yes, I do share the same name as Jokic, Nikola. But you can call me Nick. It's a lot easier. All right. Now, he is much better than me. Do you know who said this? Put it in the chat. Do you know who said he's much better than me? Guys, put it in the chat. Who said he is much better than me in a match? Alcaraz. You got it. Jose Versace. Alcaraz, you got it correct. This was so interesting to me. Carlos Alcaraz in Spanish to his box said he is much better than me, and he kept saying it. He kept repeating it, and then I think he also said he's better than me by a lot, by a lot. I forget where exactly he was saying this in the match, maybe in the third set or in the second set. Put in the chat if you know exactly when he said it, because I don't remember 100%. But I saw it on Reddit today, actually, and I thought it was very interesting because when I prepare these videos, I try to listen to as many player interviews that I can. I learn a lot from listening to the players. In coaching in general, it's very important to listen, to learn from the players, whether it's the best players in the world or your own students. Listening, very important. A lot of coaches forget that, and they're, coaching a lot, talking a lot, but they don't set aside enough time to listen. So I listen, and I want to learn, and I want to understand what it's like to play center, because none of us can really feel what it's like to play center. And what I always heard was that Roger Federer has the best forehand in the world. And the reasoning is that he doesn't give you any time. He puts you under so much pressure, and the ball comes at you so quick. And if you remember, Roger Federer had tremendous amount of RPM on his forehand, but he hit it a little bit lower than, let's say, Nadal and Djokovic on average. Of course, both can hit it low if they want, and of course Roger can hit it high if he wants. But on average, I think net clearance was a little bit lower on Roger. All right. What I heard from many players, including at this tournament Ben Shelton, who said that Sinner's ball is 2 times faster than everyone else's. This reminds me of what players have said about Roger Federer. And I think this is the problem when you play Sinner. And the stats don't really tell you the whole truth. Because when I was doing the research for the Djokovic Sinner semifinal, there are some matches where Djokovic actually has higher average speed on the forehand than Sinner. And then Sinner has a little bit higher speed than Djokovic on the backhand. So that's a very confusing stat. You look at this data and you could think Djokovic hits the ball faster than Sinner, but it's not true, because what players are forced to do against Sinner is match his speed, because if they don't, he's going to blow him off the court. And so he draws errors from opponents from putting so much pressure on them. And he indeed, even though he finished number 1 on both forehand and backhand shot quality last year, he's way above average on RPM and on average speed on both forehand and backhand. When you listen to the players, you understand that this is the problem against Yannick. He hits unbelievably hard. And I think one of the reasons why that's the case, I did see some data that he hits very similar to Federer. He hits lower over the net, especially on the backhand. His backhand is lower over the net than other players, and his forehand as well. So when the ball goes lower over the net and maybe longer, you're going to feel pressured. And even the great Carlos Alcaraz felt this in the Wimbledon final. And that's why he said, he is much better than me. He was saying it because he was feeling it. It must be a horrible feeling. And that's the problem. And like I said in my video yesterday, the faster the service, the more trouble you're going to be in. So your chances are going to be better on a slow surface against Yannick. Another thing that I find very interesting when it comes to both Sinner and Alcaraz is that they don't seem to be affected by slow conditions. So we've all heard players complain about how dead the balls are, Medvedev, Zverev. Maybe there were some other players. Tsitsipas, I think, also complained. I never heard Sinner or Alcaraz complain about dead balls because these guys can hit through a dead ball. You know, that's how fast they hit, and especially Sinner. So I find it very, very interesting that Carlos Alcaraz had that feeling in this final that he was being overhit from the baseline. And he did say from the baseline, he's much better than me from the baseline. Okay, so I'm leaving that part out. He's much better than me from the baseline. So can you imagine if they go on a surface that's faster than Wimbledon? Because I read yesterday that they ranked the surfaces last year and Wimbledon came in 25th. So there are 24 other tournaments with a faster surface than Wimbledon. And yeah, Sinner is going to be pretty close to unbeatable in a lot of events. Sinner is going to be close to unbeatable because there's not much you can do. You're either going to blow yourself off the court or you're going to let him blow you off the court. That's basically it. All right, let me look in the chat and see if there's some other interesting things in here, and then we'll go on to the next point on the board. You were a huge Bulls fan and you watched Kukoc? Yeah, that's amazing. I got to see Tony play once when I lived in Rockford, Illinois, and he briefly played for the Milwaukee Bucks, and I watched a couple of games when Tony was on the team. I love Tony Kukoc. He's one of my favorite players. Can Alcaraz shorten his backswing? He already has compact backswings. There's nothing to shorten. You can't. I've analyzed his backhand, and it's a next-gen backhand. You cannot shorten that backhand. He already made it more compact by, starting more straight and lower. The forehand is unbelievably compact. You can't shorten that. It's already short. If you shorten it more, you're not going to get any power. So that's not going to work. You just have to get better. You have to get quicker. You have to get more explosive. You have to improve. You have to get faster, improve your preparation. That's really the only way. I think that might happen naturally. Sinner might force these other players to get better, and the overall level of tennis will improve altogether. I think it's going to get faster because of Sinner. All right, next topic on the board. This is a controversial one. ESPN versus TNT. ESPN versus TNT. Guys, put in the chat which coverage you preferred. Did you like ESPN or did you like TNT? What was better? Put in the chat. Let me see what's going on. All right, I thought so. TNT. TNT all the way. Let's see. TNT again. ESPN was GOAT. Wait a second now. ESPN. We got TNT. TNT all the way. TNT. Okay, there's some people from Europe here, Eurosport. I wish I could watch Eurosport. And you know what? With the BBC, I'll touch upon that in a second. Some pro and cons, ESPN versus TNT. So it looks like, a lot of people like TNT better. And, I read a big article, I think it was in the New York Times prior to Roland Garros about TNT, and they signed a 10-year deal for Roland Garros. And they really put a lot of thought into how they're going to present this Grand Slam tournament. And I thought it was one of the best tennis coverage, Grand Slam coverage that I've ever seen. It was something fresh, something new. It felt different. And I loved it. And I liked it a lot better than ESPN. A lot better. I think the segments that they did were way better. Even though I did appreciate the segment on ESPN on Arthur Ashe. That was great. But generally, the segments on TNT were way better. And something about it felt different. It was just fresh. It was new. A lot of the same announcers were there, a lot of the same commentators, but I liked it a lot better. And once we got back to ESPN, it was kind of a bummer, to be honest with you. And the one thing that I like about ESPN is their app, ESPN Plus. And interestingly, there's a lot of people that wrote BBC here. For some reason, I don't know why. When I would click on some of these matches and watch them on ESPN Plus, I got the BBC feed, and it was fascinating. So I was listening to McEnroe on the ESPN feed, and I was listening to McEnroe on the BBC feed, and I love listening to McEnroe. He relaxes me when I watch tennis. It's like listening to a guy commentating on a match from behind a back fence somewhere. I know a lot of people are upset at this commentary style, but I love it. I don't like when I don't like when announcers get too technical and then start getting into technique and all that. I don't like that. I like the way John does it, and for that reason, he's my all-time favorite. Now, there was an article written about the McEnroe brothers in the Washington Post, and this article was criticizing the McEnroes, and I actually I paid money. I've got a subscription to read that. And when it comes to announcers, like a lot of it is personal preference, because in the comment section of that article, a lot of people were saying that they love McEnroe, and then a lot of them were disagreeing and saying they hate McEnroe, and then they listed some other ones that other people said they hate them, and it's like, it's like personal preference. You're gonna find a lot of people that like and dislike your favorite announcer for sure. But in any case, TNT versus ESPN. So what I liked about ESPN, the app, where I was able to hear some different type of coverage, the BBC coverage, I enjoyed it very much, even though, I talked about pronunciation in one of my videos. I decided to cut that segment out of my video, so it's not there anymore. I might revisit that topic at some point, but what happened was with that segment, it was a good idea. I had planned to do this topic for a long time, and I avoided it for like 3 years. And now I know why I avoided it, because it's a hot topic. And the main thing that I wanted to tell people in that segment about pronunciation of names was that people don't say Federer the right way, and it's pronounced Federer. Now, I know that Federer is not German, okay? Because I think a few people from Switzerland in the comments were saying that we don't say it like that. But you have to understand, like, I prepare for these videos. I'm not just gonna wing it, okay? I have friends in Switzerland, and I talked to them prior to making that video, and they say it the same way we say it in Germany. They say Federer. They say it like with the rolling of the R, with the Swiss dialect, but they do say Federer the same way when they're speaking to a German. When they speak Swiss German, it's something completely different. I don't know what it is. I don't speak Swiss German. So it gets so complicated with the pronunciations, okay? Because there's dialects, there's all kinds of things. And the reason why I'm talking about this is that on the BBC, pretty much every single person was saying Alcaraz. I don't even know how to say it. And I'm sorry that I said it here, but I'm not going to say that, okay? That sounds so bad, saying Alcaraz in Spanish way, because I don't know how to speak Spanish, and it's like saying Jennifer Lopez the correct way, right? Like, you're going to sound so bad when you do that. And I do think those guys on the BBC sound bad when they pronounce Alcaraz correctly. So, what I should have said in that video, and somebody mentioned in the comments, and that's the reason why I ended up cutting that segment, was there are international names of cities, countries for a reason. So it makes it easier for everyone to pronounce the country or the city. So I think it's very similar with names. And a lot of times, and that's why I brought up Federer, people will mispronounce their own name to make it easier to pronounce for other people if they have a complicated name. I certainly do that here because my name is very tough. And Federer does that too. So long story short, like I said, their countries, cities have versions of names that are easier to say. For example, in Croatia, it's not Croatia. It's easy to say Croatia, but in Croatian it's Hrvatska, Hrvatska. Nobody can say that, okay? And for that reason, like Croatia, that's the international name. So that was the thing with the pronunciations. And on the BBC, I heard them say Alcaraz the correct way, and I didn't like it that much, but I did like a lot of the BBC coverage with McEnroe, and there were some other announcers too that I liked. I'll just tell you, in addition to McEnroe, my all-time fave is Leif Shiras. I love Leif Shiras, and I don't know why he doesn't get a slot in these big tournaments, because he's so neutral, he's so calm, he's so relaxing when you listen to him. He's fantastic. Leif Shiras, the absolute goat of tennis commentary. He's been doing it forever too, and he's a former player. He beat Sampras one time, I think, in Queens. Leif Shiras, absolute goat. And one thing, I'm going to say this, and this is a little bit controversial. One thing I don't like about ESPN is that a lot of people that are on there have a conflict of interest. And I don't really see that big of a conflict of interest when I compare other sports. And I didn't see any of that on TNT. So that's one thing on ESPN that's always kind of weird to me. Why did they allow that? Why they're cool with that, having such a conflict of interest? For example, let's say like one person works with a player, and then they're on a panel, and then they're discussing other players and maybe even that player, and then it kind of gets uncomfortable. I don't know. It's always uncomfortable to watch those segments. And there's been many examples. I'm not going to single anyone out, but I'm sure that the player is probably okay with the coach doing that, and it's probably something they agreed upon prior to working together, maybe even in a contract. So it's all cool and it's fine. And you could argue whether that's good or bad. I'm not even saying that, but just for us viewers, this conflict of interest is not good. And on ESPN happens all the time. And for that reason, that's why I preferred TNT over ESPN a lot, by a big margin. And I love Tennis Channel. Okay, so Tennis Channel I think is great, and especially Tennis Channel Plus, which I stream, and that's great as well. They will not only show you every single like ATP WTA match, but they recently started showing challengers. So I recently watched the Newport Challenger, which is a former ATP tournament on grass, and it was downgraded to a WTA 125 and a ATP Challenger. And I watched a lot of the matches there. I watched the Braunschweig Challenger in Germany. Navone won, one of my favorite clay quarters. So yeah, Tennis Channel Plus, incredible. Like, I love it. So anyways, ESPN versus TNT. TNT all day long. All right, let me see what's going on here and see if there are any interesting comments. Oh, this is a great question. Who do you think will finish with more Grand Slams, Alcaraz or Sinner, and why? Oh, that's great. That's a great question. And I did talk about this in one of my videos, but I'll talk about it again. Simone, why are you sitting there? Nobody can see you. Here, let me nah, you won't be able to see him. He's sitting on this chair. Lately, he doesn't want to sit next to me anymore. I don't know why. He always sits in that corner. But back to the question, who will win more Grand Slams, Sinner or Alcaraz? So I've said multiple times in my videos that Sinner will not only get more big titles compared to Alcaraz, he will also eventually reverse the head-to-head. And it's just going to be impossible for Alcaraz to keep the advantage in the head-to-head and get more titles with Sinner, because while Alcaraz has improved tremendously, he will continue to improve. He was on a 24-match win streak. This is the best period in his career. I'm so impressed with Alcaraz and his improvement. So I think you'll see far less slumps in the future from Alcaraz, far less. Sinner already showed how consistent he is. Incredible. But I think just the nature of these two guys, the way they play tennis, and that's something that's very difficult to turn off. Sinner, less variety and more control and power. And Sinner, pretty much, a lot of variety. He can do anything on the tennis court. And because of that, their natural playing style will be an advantage to Sinner when it comes to long-term results. It's just the way it is. There's no way around that. So naturally, Alcaraz will have more off days compared to Sinner. And there's a lot of evidence for this. When you look at their results in tournaments prior to meeting in the final, Sinner wins easier than Alcaraz. Alcaraz will lose some sets to players where you're surprised that he's losing sets to these guys, right? And that's just the nature of Alcaraz, and that's going to be hard to turn off. But like I said, he's gotten a lot better because in the past he might have lost some of these matches. And I don't think that's going to happen as frequently anymore, even on hard court. But you can't turn Alcaraz off, because if you turn Alcaraz off the way he is on the court, you destroy him. And I don't think he will be able to play at all. So he needs to have fun on the court. He can only have fun if he plays the way he's always played. And within that, I'm sure there are things that he can do to make it a more controlled situation on the court. And I'm sure he's done that with his coaching team, and we're seeing more consistent results. But you can't completely turn off his character on the court and his natural way of playing. And for that reason, he is going to be more up and down compared to Sinner, and it's going to be impossible for him to keep the advantage in the head-to-head, and Sinner will get more big titles than him. Now, maybe not for a while, right? But 10 years from now, and when it's all said and done, over a long stretch of time, impossible that Alcaraz comes out ahead. It's impossible. It's not going to be that huge of a difference, though, right? So maybe one guy gets like 20, the other guy gets 15, or one guy gets 15, the other guy gets 10 or 12 or something like so. I think it's going to be something like that. Like I said in the last video, the faster the surface, the more of an advantage this is going to be for Sinner. And the slower the surface is going to give more advantages to Alcaraz to break the Sinner rhythm. So it's going to be interesting to see who will end up with more clay titles. I know you're going to call me crazy, but I do think that Sinner can stack up quite a few titles on clay. I think he's a great player on clay. It's a natural surface for him, and he can be very dangerous on there. So that's, of course, now still a big advantage for Alcaraz, clay courts. But, of course, those matches were super tight this year, both Rome and, of course, Roland Garros. But I do think Sinner is going to be very dangerous on clay and, of course, highly capable of taking any title, including Roland Garros. So, yeah, for sure it's going to be Sinner who ends up winning more Grand Slams. All right, let's actually go on to the next thing on the board. And this is going to be very interesting, guys, because let me clip my mic. We're going to talk about Pure Drive versus Pure Drive Plus versus. Hold on one second. Let me clip this mic from the inside. Wow, we got 600 people in here. I think it's a record, guys. That's a record. Okay, that's a record, guys. All right, next topic on the board is Pure Drive versus Pure Drive 98. So for you guys that don't know, there's a unbelievable saga that deals with me trying to find a new racket. I should have never even started with this, but I had to because my old was a 2017 Pure Drive Plus was deteriorating. I went on eBay and tried to find more. Didn't have any in my grip size. The Plus is very hard to find if it's an older model, and I was kind of forced to switch because those rackets were really beat up, and on top of that I painted them white, and so I had to switch. But I recently started playing with the Pure Drive because I had some arm issues. I played with one racket, which wasn't the Shift, by the way. The Shift did not cause my arm problems. It was another racket that's going to be unmentioned, like what brand it is and stuff. And unfortunately, the Shift didn't take the pain away from my arm, but it didn't cause the pain because I started playing with the Shift last summer. It was the third racket I tested in the Finding a New Racket series. And I was teaching lessons with it, playing with it for like forever until January with no pain whatsoever. And then I tried that other racket, and that racket destroyed my arm after 1 hour. And then I played with it one more time, and my arm was like toast. And then I went back to the Shift, and the pain didn't go away, right? And I found that once I tried to play with the Pure Drive, the pain subsided a lot in a very short time, and now I'm pain-free. So I don't know which Pure Drive I'm going to take. So here's the Pure Drive 98, the 2025 model. Here's the Pure Drive regular version, 300 grams static weight, 27-inch length. And here's the Pure Drive Plus, right? Is it? No, wait. Where's the Plus? I don't have the Plus here, but it doesn't matter. No, this is not the Plus. Hold on. Yeah, no, this is not the Plus. I have the Plus, but I don't. This is not it. These are two the same. So anyway, these two rackets are very interesting. If you see, there's a difference in the beam width, and I like both of them. See, the thing about my struggles with the racket is my forehand, because my forehand with the Pure Drive is not good, but my forehand with the Pure Drive regular length is a lot better. Is it perfect? No. My forehand with the Shift was great, and I do miss the Shift a lot. I love that racket. But I can tell you that the 98 is great for my forehand because it gives me a little bit more control, but it's a little bit worse on my serve and my backhand. So I have to decide which one of these I'm gonna play with, and I'm also gonna give the Plus another chance, even though it's really not that great for my forehand. Maneuverability is not good, and I don't know, it's just so tough for me to play with that one, but I do like it on my serve and my backhand. So I am gonna make several videos, you know, and finally decide what I'm gonna play with. I'm not sure yet, but I want to tell you that I do like the Pure Drive 98. It's a phenomenal racket. Babolat created a control version of the Pure Drive, which is insane. I didn't think it was possible, but I like this one a lot. It feels really good. You get a lot of power, but you also get a little bit more control compared to the Pure Drive, and you can take huge cuts, which is not always the case with this one. When you're a little bit off with this racket, you take a huge cut, the ball will go very far out. So that's the update on the rackets. There are going to be more videos coming your way with my racket situation, and I'm going to keep you guys posted. I'm also continuing to play. All right, I'm playing matches. I got more matches coming of myself. I've been playing a lot, and I just want to share this with you because it's interesting. When I decided to play with the Shift, my plan was to get in better shape and play a lot of matches. So I started training like a maniac every single day. I was practicing more than I practiced in many, many years, like as if I was still playing college tennis, right? I was practicing every day, playing sets and stuff. And I was wearing myself out, and I was definitely overtraining. And so now I'm playing less, maybe twice a week or sometimes even once a week. And I think that works a lot better for me. I'm playing better, actually. I'm more fresh on the court, and I'm doing daily like fitness, you know. Usually I like to get some cardio in, but I've been doing a tremendous amount of rehab on my knee. And that's actually the reason why I'm able to play, because I bought a Nordic bench, doing exercises that I've never done in my life. And I'm doing a lot of different things for my knee. And it's working because I'm playing and my knee is feeling better and better. So it's super exciting. And again, I'm going to take you guys on this journey where I'm trying to, even at my age, trying to improve and trying to get better. because, as I said in some of my previous videos, I have not been playing well this year. Some of the worst tennis that I've ever played, and there are many reasons for this, but one of the main reasons is actually the racket testing. It's one of the worst things that you can do to your game, and especially if you let it go on as long as I let my racket testing phase go on. I completely destroyed my feel for rackets. My preferences changed completely because last summer I was perfectly fine playing with a 27.5-inch racket. I was playing great. Didn't even think about the racket. It was feeling great. And then, 6 months later, I can't play anymore with my old racket. I still have like 3 of them, but I can't play with it at all. Like, I cannot play with that racket anymore. Can't control the ball, nothing. And I'm also having a hard time playing with extended rackets now. So my preferences have changed. And my game, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. And of course, part of it is getting out of shape a little bit. Part of it is getting older, but you don't get that much worse in 6 months, right? Like, you get worse very slowly. So I think, yeah, testing these rackets has put a funk in my game. But as you will see in some of my upcoming videos, I'm playing a little bit better. And I'm going to keep going and take you guys on the journey with me, and hopefully motivate you guys and inspire you guys to improve as well. And always, I'm going to share my mistakes and the solutions for my mistakes, and you guys might identify with some of those same mistakes, and you can apply the same solutions, and this could help you with your game as well. All right, let me take a look at the chat real quick, and we'll see what's going on here. Oh, this is a great question. Which play style do you prefer, Alcaraz or Sinner? Which one is closest to yours, would you say, Nick? No, there's not a single player on the ATP rankings that plays like me. Like, not a single one, I don't think. Like, so my game is old school. Like, it's got a lot of classic elements. I got a forehand from the 90s, So, yeah, my game you won't find anywhere. But, like, if you want to say I'm a poor man's, like a John Isner or Ivo Karlovic, I guess you could say that. I'm someone that has a decent serve and that likes to play from the baseline. So that's my style. And that obviously, like, there's absolutely no resemblance to Alcaraz and Sinner. Now, who do I like better? As far as their play style, I like Alcaraz's play style better. I think his strokes look nicer. I would say maybe like 2023 that the Alcaraz serve wasn't as nice looking, as aesthetically pleasing as the Sinner serve 2003. But with the changes that Carlos has undertaken on his serve in 2024, I do think that now the Alcaraz serve looks aesthetically pleasing, and I think they both look nice, the Sinner serve and the Alcaraz serve. I like Alcaraz's forehand better, just aesthetics. Okay, I'm not talking about the quality of the shot. Sinner has that, that next gen thing. It's whippy, it's whippy, and I don't think that whippy looks that great. It's not that good on the eye. It's just me personally. Maybe some people like it. So I do like the Alcaraz forehand better. I'm gonna be really brutal here, and maybe a lot of you guys will not agree with me, but I don't like either one of those guys' backhand. I think the Djokovic backhand is way better looking than Alcaraz or Sinner. Sinner's is whippy. Alcaraz is starting to look better, but in the past it looked somewhat stiff. Of course, nothing wrong with it fundamentally. These guys are number 1 and 2 in shot quality in the world on the backhand. They have amazing backhands. It has nothing to do with the quality of the shot, just the way it looks. I'm not a big fan of the way they look, the backhands. I think someone like Fonseca has a better looking backhand, Djokovic. And I actually love WTA two-handed backhands. I think they have some of the most aesthetically pleasing shots, serves, and two-handed backhands. Not so much forehands, of course. You'll find better looking forehands on the ATP Tour, but backhands, yeah, I'm not that big of a fan of the Sinner or the Alcaraz backhand. But play style, I mean, I'm not going to be in the minority here. Of course, who doesn't like the Alcaraz play style? The way he was doing those little field drop shots, incredible. I mean, in crucial moments of the match, he hits them so well. I think his regular drop shot was off in the final because of that speed of shot from Sinner, and he didn't give him any opportunity to hit drop shots. And so when he did drop shots, they were poor shot selection. He wasn't really in control of the point, and he was actually missing a lot of drop shots. But yeah, the Alcaraz drop shot is incredible. The Alcaraz volley is great. And you know, one thing that I discussed privately during this Wimbledon, I didn't talk about in a video. The Alcaraz one-handed backhand slice is insane. He was doing a lot of them in the match against, I don't remember now. I don't want to say something wrong. I don't remember where he was doing the slice, but he did do a few slices in one of the matches prior to the final, and the slice is insane. Of course, it's insane. If somebody can hit that drop shot like that or a backhand volley, his slice is going to be insane. So, yeah, no, Alcaraz for sure. In all aspects of aesthetics is going to be more than Sinner, and I think that's why a lot of people like Alcaraz better than Sinner because of the way his strokes look and the way he plays, All right, let's go on to the next thing on the board, and that's Ljubicic, okay? Ivan Ljubicic. Now, what some of you guys might not know is that Ivan spent a lot of time in Italy training with Piatti, and Ivan speaks Italian, and he actually was a commentator on Italian TV. And so I've been seeing a lot of Ljubicic quotes, and there was one thing that he said that's very important and a lesson to all us tennis parents. Are there any tennis parents in the chat? Put a yes if you're a tennis parent in the chat right now. Are you a tennis parent? Guys, put a yes in the chat if you're a tennis parent. Come on, there's got to be some tennis parents in the chat. All right, nobody. All right, I'll tell you anyway because I think, okay, here, yes. Renato is a tennis parent. Yes, okay, there's some tennis parents in here. Okay, good. So, I used to be a tennis parent. Not anymore. I made a video about that. You can check out on my channel. Ljubicic said that all tennis parents should take note of Sinner's parents. His dad was working during the Roland Garros final, and his mom wasn't even sitting inside of his box during the Wimbledon final. Now, I'm going to add something that Ljubicic didn't say, but his brother also rarely comes to matches. So Ivan said, take a note, tennis parents, let them be. He means let the kids be. Let the kids do their thing. Welcome back, Simone. I'm glad you made it back to the live stream. So what I usually see, and I used to be very active in the junior scene here in Southeast Florida. I coached high-level juniors, and I used to go to tournaments and stuff. And my daughter was a tournament player, and we trained for many years. She quit tennis at, I think it was 12. But we started her at 4, right? So there was a lot of years of tennis there. And what I see is the exact opposite. Parents don't let the kids be. They're doing helicopter parenting on the tennis courts. They're all over the place. Like all of them show up, mom, dad, and they're hovering over the kids and they're, watching them. And you see this on the Pro Tour as well, where parents are very involved. And as a coach, I've learned that the kid has to be comfortable on the court, because sometimes a kid might want their parents to be there and watch, but other times the kid plays worse when the parents are there and doesn't want the parents to watch. I'm not going to share personal stories, maybe some other time, okay? But I used to play tennis as well. Um, so some kids are going to play way more freely and way better if their parents are not there. Now, I'm not saying that this is true for Yannick Sinner. I have no idea. But it's okay for your kid to play on their own if you're not there. It's perfectly fine. You have to figure out what's going to work best for your kids. And in some instances, letting them be is the right thing. Now, when it comes to, boy, should I do this or should I not? Probably not. Let me not talk about this because there's going to be differences in coaching versus, when you coach males and females in regards to parents. But let's save that for another day. But I just wanted to bring this up from Ljubicic because I thought it was a great message to the parents. Let the kids be. Don't put more pressure on them that they already have, because tennis at all levels brings pressures. It's not all about like playing pro, playing level 6 or level 7 on the weekend. The kid is going to feel pressure, and maybe the kid's going to feel more pressure if you're hovering all over the back fence, and yelling instructions or whatever else. The kid's going to feel even more pressure. So yeah, great tweet from Ljubicic. Great example from the Sinner family. It's okay to let the player be sometimes. All right. Next up on the board, and this was asked in the chat. Very interesting. Can Alcaraz win US Open? Put it in the chat, guys. Can Alcaraz win the US Open? Put it in the chat. Let me know what you think. Can Carlos Alcaraz win the US Open? Now, of course, he won the US Open already in 2022. All right. He's a US Open champion. But now that Sinner has gotten so much better, can Carlos Alcaraz win the US Open? Because he's been struggling a little bit post Wimbledon the last couple of seasons, okay? Hasn't performed that well. A lot of yeses in the chat. People think he can win US Open. All right. Never mind then. Let's go on to the next question. No, just kidding. Yeah, look, as I've said before, court speed matters if these guys play each other. And Carlos Alcaraz can, of course, beat Sinner on any surface. The match yesterday wasn't as easy as it looks. There were a lot of tricky parts in this match. Even that second set, like Alcaraz lost his serve right away after winning the first set, but then had break chances on the Sinner serve. So if Sinner loses his serve there, maybe Alcaraz gets more confidence on his serve and gets the second set. He's up 2-0. So any match these guys play is going to be very close on any surface, even hard court, right? So, of course, Carlos Alcaraz can beat Yannick Sinner even on a fast surface, and he can also beat him at the U.S. Open and win another U.S. Open. No doubt about it. He's capable of doing that. Carlos Alcaraz is an amazing player. But, as I've said many times, faster courts, especially hard courts, with the exception of some slow ones like Indian Wells or Beijing, actually, it's a slow one. If it's a faster hard court, the advantage is going to be for Yannick Sinner. Now, I'm not sure what the U.S. Open ranks. I'll have to look it up. If anybody knows the ranking on court speed for the U.S. Open, put it in the chat. But I want to make one point about Carlos Alcaraz, and that's the following. He's improving as a player in many different aspects, and one of the improvements is his consistency. And what I've been seeing ever since he stepped foot on the red clay in Monte Carlo is that he's continuing to play poorly in some matches, but he's figuring out a way to win. And he went on an incredible run, made the final of every tournament he played since Monte Carlo. Every tournament he played, he made the final. And I think we're going to see more of that in the future. So I think we are going to see a ton of Alcaraz Sinner finals. We're going to see a ton of them. Because Sinner, of course, is consistent. He's going to make it to the final a lot. But I think also Carlos Alcaraz will surprise a lot of people and start doing really well in the hard court swing, because he obviously can. he's an amazing player. He played really well in 2023 against Djokovic in Cincinnati. That was a great match. So he's capable of doing that, and I do think that he can win the U.S. Open, even though what a lot of people will say now, and what I'm already seeing in some of the comment sections, is that Yannick Sinner is so much better than Carlos. There are such extremes when it comes to Carlos. Either he's being praised to high heavens, like maybe too much, even, okay? And if he starts losing, the exact opposite happens, and people are bashing him and calling him all kinds of names and insulting him. So I feel now that Sinner won this match. It's going to be tough for him to get a lot of positivity online, because people are going to be all about Sinner. And when it comes to predictions, like now, everyone is going to predict Sinner to win the U.S. Open. Okay, there's going to be very few people who are going to predict Alcaraz, but there were very few people who predicted Sinner to win Wimbledon. Everybody was for Alcaraz. So yeah, it's kind of like extreme opinions regarding Carlos Alcaraz. It's too crazy. It's too much. But yeah, Carlos Alcaraz can for sure win the U.S. Open, and I think he will. I think both of these guys, when it's all said and done, there will be multiple Grand Slam champions at each Grand Slam. So even Sinner at Roland Garros will get multiple slams. Because of the reasons I stated, they're going to go very deep for a very long time, unless one of them gets injured or something, or you never know. Maybe there are going to be some slumps. I doubt it, but there's a discrepancy between these guys and everybody else. Okay, let's face it. And Djokovic is going to retire soon. So there's a big discrepancy. You're going to see head-to-heads build up that are like Djokovic versus some of the other guys. Like Djokovic, Fritz is like 13-0 or something like that, or 12-0. So they're going to win a lot, both of them, Sinner and Alcaraz. All right, let me take a look at the chat, because we only have one more topic on the board, guys. One more topic on the board. And that's more of a plug anyway. That's not really a topic. All right, this is a great question. How do you explain Carlos' apparent post-Wimbledon drop-off last year and in 2023? Okay, so 2023, he won Wimbledon, right? In that 5-setter against Djokovic. He then lost in Cincinnati to Djokovic, like I already said. That hurt him a lot, that match, because there was incredibly high level, and he really wanted to win that one, and he lost it. And he was very upset afterwards. I think he might even have cried after that match, right? So I think that loss to Djokovic took a little bit out of him. And then he didn't perform well at the U.S. Open. I forget who he lost to 2023 U.S. Open. Put it in the chat if you guys can look it up. Who did Carlos Alcaraz lose to? U.S. Open 2023. I mean, I can look it up myself, actually. I don't need you guys to do the work. Let me do the work, okay? By the way, a lot of you guys ask what app I'm using. It's called Resultina, and I'm not sponsored by them. I have a subscription. I pay for it. But it's called Resultina, and it's my favorite one. There's other ones out there that are good too, but this one is quick. I've gotten used to it, and I can find things very easily. So I'm going to find this in a matter of seconds. The answer to this. All right. So, wow. Okay. I'm surprised. So 2023, he lost in 4 sets to Medvedev, Alcaraz. He made it to the semifinals. He beat Zverev in the quarters, Arnaldi in around the 16s. He lost to Medvedev in the semis. I forgot about that match. So that wasn't bad, right? That wasn't bad at all, that 2023 hardcore season. And then let me take a look at, this is where it gets tricky for Alcaraz, because once he goes indoors, that's where he struggles. So that year, 2023, Beijing, he lost to Sinner in Beijing, 7-6, 6-1. Then in Shanghai, he lost to Dimitrov in the round of 16. And then he lost to Safiullin. Remember that match in Paris, the Paris Masters? And then he got beaten by Zverev in the round robin of the ATP finals. He did qualify for the semifinals because he beat Rublev and Medvedev in straight sets. And then remember, he lost to Djokovic 3-2 in the semis of the ATP finals in 23. So look, that year, I do think that loss in Toronto, that loss in Cincinnati to Djokovic, and he lost to Tommy Paul in Toronto in 3 sets and a quarters that year, 2023. So that loss to Djokovic in Cincinnati, I hurt him a lot. And I do think that he still played decently, okay? But I think it took some out of him. And then, of course, we don't even need to discuss last year, all right? Like 2024. We know what happened. Like maybe the most painful loss of his life, losing that Olympics final to Djokovic. He was the clear favorite. Remember, Djokovic had knee surgery. He was wearing a bandage, I think, still. He was wearing a bandage in the Wimbledon final. Carlos Alcaraz destroyed Djokovic in the Wimbledon final. What was it, a week before or 2 weeks before that? He was the heavy favorite. Nobody picked Djokovic except yours truly. I had a feeling that Djokovic was going to win this one because I saw Djokovic. I was in Croatia at the time. And let me just tell you, like, I do have my reasons as far as, like, the surface they play on and how they match up head to head. But in that particular year, I was so impressed with how Djokovic was training between Wimbledon and the Olympics. He was in Dubrovnik running on the street with a shirt off, and cars were going like an absolute maniac. The guy is such an insane worker, Djokovic, and I thought this guy wants gold so bad. I'm like, I'm picking him. And Carlos Alcaraz was playing that weird Hopman Cup, I think, after Wimbledon, where he was just having fun. So Carlos Alcaraz is having fun playing Hopman Cup, and Novak Djokovic is training like a madman, like out of Rocky. And so that's why I picked him. So 2024 for Alcaraz was all about that match, but remember, he lost to Botic van den Zandschulp in the second round of the US Open last year, but then he rebounded much quicker than the year before, like much better results. So he played Davis Cup and played well in Davis Cup, won 2 matches, beat Mahac, I think. And then, remember, he won Beijing. He beat Sinner. Let me check if that's correct. Yeah, he beat Sinner in Beijing. Yeah, he beat Sinner 7-6 in the third in Beijing, and then he lost to Mahac in the Shanghai in the quarters. His worst tournament by far is Paris Masters. He lost to Humbert 7-5 in the third. And so you have to differentiate like indoors for Alcaraz versus hardcourt. Outdoors. That's a big difference. And then he lost in the round robins of the ATP finals. He didn't even qualify for the final. He lost to Ruud and Zverev. And I don't remember if he was hurt or I don't know what happened there. So, yeah, you do have to differentiate for Alcaraz, like post-Wimbledon. We're talking hard court in the U.S. That's a whole different story than what happens after the U.S. It's a whole different season. So I do think that Carlos Alcaraz is learning from mistakes and getting better at, preparing himself for the U.S. hardcore swing after Wimbledon. And like I said before, I don't need to get into it again. Like, he can win Wimbledon for sure. And indoors, he's going to have to do a lot of work to get better indoors. He's going to have to, I think, maybe practice more indoors. And of course, he's capable of playing well on that surface. But can you imagine if he plays Sinner indoors? It's going to be tough for him. That's going to be a huge advantage for a Sinner. Can he beat him? Yeah, of course. I think the 6 Kings Slam, which in my opinion is not really an exhibition, they were playing for so much money, that was indoors, and it was a very close match, Alcaraz Sinner. So Carlos Alcaraz is amazing, but if you want to say what's his worst surface, for sure it's going to be indoors. So yeah, post Wimbledon last 2 years, there's an improvement, but there were 2 very difficult losses for Alcaraz against Djokovic. Djokovic is the Alcaraz destroyer. Not anymore. I don't think Djokovic is going to have that many chances against the improved version of Alcaraz. But the old Alcaraz pre-Monte Carlo this year, Djokovic was able to get to him. He even got him this year. And I think those matches that he loses to Djokovic do affect him. But again, I think he's bouncing. He was bouncing back from them quicker than before. Like even this year when he lost to Djokovic Australian Open, he won the indoor tournament in Rotterdam. So you see, Carlos Alcaraz is like getting better and better and improving. And so these slumps, I think they're going to be like a thing of the past. I think he's going to make a lot of finals, like I said before. All right, let's do another question here. Besides Fonseca, which young players or juniors can challenge them in the next 5 years? Look, to say that Fonseca can challenge these guys, it's not fair for Fonseca. Let the guy develop slowly. I think it's a huge success for him to make 2 consecutive third rounds of slams. So I look at it like really step by step, and he's so far away from these guys. He's got to like doing some other things before we can talk about that. Doing a lot of things before we can even think about that. So the guy that can be very difficult to play, maybe on hard court, is Menchik. Because of that huge serve, and he did play well from the baseline and was moving well, so he's going to be tough if he's on this plays at his top level. I still think it's not too late for Holger Rune to turn it on. He's not like one of these young guys, of course. I know that, but it's not too late for Holger. He can do it, but he needs to do it quick next couple of years, or it's going to be too late, I think. And something needs to happen. Now, I don't know if you guys heard, but Zverev started working with Tony Nadal. I saw that today. He's working with Tony Nadal. So maybe Zverev can also be better now after some disappointing results. So let's see. But the youngsters, it's going to be tough for him. It's going to take a while. Like I said, I don't see any chances, to be honest with you. Like, I see a big discrepancy in level. I really thought Arthur Fils was going to do more than he did this clay court season. Of course, he got injured with his back. I think he had a stress fracture or something like that. I think he's a dangerous player, but everyone's kind of far away from them, except Djokovic. Like, 38 years old, and he's really the only one where you think, okay, you know what? He might do it. Taylor Fritz is doing amazing. He's playing so well. I covered Taylor a lot during the Wimbledon tournament, and he's improving and he's getting better. But he's getting closer now with Alcaraz. He played a great match, but he's still looking for something extra to be able to get to these guys. So yeah, it's a big discrepancy, and I think if you make predictions that the youngsters are going to challenge these guys, is so insane. It's not based on any reality whatsoever, and we just have to wait and see. Fonseca is a phenomenal player and has potential to do big things based on the way he plays, the strokes and all that. But tennis is not all about strokes. Tennis goes way deeper than that, and we just have to keep watching him and hope that he develops nicely, and let's see what happens. But yeah, right now I don't really see anyone being able to get near these guys. It's going to be the big two for for a long time. Let's see. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. All right, let's take a look at the chat and see if there's any more questions. All right, let's see here. By the way, guys, for some reason the live chat disappears on my videos, and I looked everywhere in the comment section. So let me look here if there's like a button where I can push. So make sure that the chat can be. Oh, this is a clip. Hold on. Where's the chat? Because the chat, usually you can like do the replay of the chat once this video has been posted to YouTube. But on my live streams, I can never find the chat. I don't know why. And I looked in settings. I looked everywhere, but I don't know what's going on. All right, let's see here if there's any more questions that are interesting. Let's see here. Oh, this was interesting here. Yeah, Draper. I forgot about Draper. It skipped my mind. Yeah, Draper can be very dangerous, and he did beat Carlos in Indian Wells. But again, that's the old Carlos. There's an old Carlos, there's a new Carlos. New Carlos is from Monte Carlo until now. That's the new Carlos. Maybe we'll get the old Carlos back. I doubt it. I think the new Carlos is here to stay, but that's the old Carlos because Carlos, after losing to Draper, lost to Goffin in Miami. So, but yeah, Draper is a great player and can do big things. But I think, again, he falls into that category of a big discrepancy in level. Okay, let's see here what's going on. Manarino won Newport. That's amazing. That is crazy. Let's see here. Diallo. I was very impressed with him in the second round match against Fritz, and I've seen him play before, and he did win that tournament in, was it Hertogenbosch? Yeah, I think he won Hertogenbosch on grass, if I'm not mistaken. A fantastic player, like one of these tall guys that moves well and can play really well from the baseline, and the serve is very good. So yeah, I think the thing is, like, the level of play. Let's say like the players that are not seeded in a Grand Slam, so like 33 to 100 in the world, let's say, those guys are better than any other era in tennis history. Those guys are amazingly good, and they can take out a lot of highly ranked players. And we saw that this year in Wimbledon. Of course, on grass there are going to be more upsets generally because it's a fast surface, but these guys are very strong. Like, tennis is improving. Maybe if you look at players ranked 3 to 10 and compare that to other eras, I'm sure it's weaker compared to some other eras for sure, but maybe even 10 to 20 could be. But I think overall the depth of tennis, the level has gone way up. It's way stronger than it was before. So for that reason, it makes tennis so tough as a sport, even if you're a top player, with the exclusion of Sinner and Alcaraz and some of the other guys, where you do have to, from the first round on, like, you could go out. It's just so brutal. It's tough, very difficult. Level of play is sky high, even on the WTA. Let's see here. Okay, I do want to talk about, somebody mentioned Andreeva in the chat. So let me talk about Andreeva. See, in a lot of ways, Andreeva is what Sinner and Alcaraz are for the ATP. She is that for the WTA Tour. Now, I'm not saying that she's of that same level as far as her accomplishments on the court. She's far away from that. She hasn't won a Grand Slam yet. She did get a couple of WTA 1000 titles. She actually got them consecutively, if I remember correctly. So that's super impressive. But she seems like someone that can draw a lot of fans to the sport and motivate a lot of people to start playing tennis. She has a great personality. She has very nice looking strokes, very complete player, good serve, great backhand. A lot of people say that she has a weak forehand because she was slicing a lot, but I've heard her interview after her loss, And she said that she was slicing because she wanted to mix things up. She wasn't slicing because she was tight or so. The forehand for sure is not as good as the backhand, but the forehand is still good. So great player, but more importantly, just a great person and somebody that is very charismatic even for her young age. And I don't know if you saw, she was holding up a sign for Conchita Martinez, who was playing in the Legends tournament. And that was really funny to me. She was supporting Conchita in that match. And I don't know, there's something about Andreeva that gives me the same type of vibes that Sinner and Alcaraz, as Sinner and Alcaraz. And that's just like a great ambassador for the sport. So I think Andreeva can be a great ambassador for the sport. And I'm not that worried about her. I do think she seems to be mentally very stable. And even though one thing that I don't really like seeing is when she shoots the balls into the stands. I've seen her do that a couple times, and she does get angry. But the way she processes losses and the press conferences looks positive to me. So yeah, again, I think she has the potential to be for the WTA Tour what Alcaraz and Sinner are for the ATP. All right, let's see what's going on here. Oh yeah, that's a great question. Do you think Dimitrov still has the potential to create something great for the time left in his career? What do you think of Ivan Ivanov, who won the boys singles title in Wimbledon? Okay, so I didn't get a chance to watch the junior matches. I will at some point, but because I do follow junior tennis, so I can't really comment on the junior tennis, but I will comment on Dimitrov. And it's so unfortunate what happened to him because he had a great chance to win that match. Of course, Sinner could have come back, but Dimitrov was playing amazing, and he came out with the right tactics. He wasn't allowing Sinner to get into a rhythm. Now, of course, Sinner did fall early in that set, and he wasn't hitting his forehand quite as fast. His MPA just had dropped off a little bit, so I think that allowed Dimitrov to dictate a little bit more. I don't think he was feeling that pressure that I was talking about earlier, that other players feel, but also the fact that he was serving huge. It's something that everyone has to do, not only against Sinner, but also Alcaraz. You have to ramp up the serve speed, even if your first serve percentage suffers. Now, Alcaraz was trying to do that yesterday. He hit a lot of aces, but he had a low first serve percentage because, again, if you give Alcaraz the cheese on the serve, I mean, if you give Sinner the cheese on the serve, he's going to punish you, right? So you have to bring the heat on the first. And even on your second, you might have to bring the heat. So that's, a story for another day. But Dimitrov is the closest thing we will ever get to Roger Federer. And it's just very unfortunate with these injuries that keep happening. So at his age now, it's going to be tough for this to stop happening, right? When he pushes his body to the limit like that and he keeps getting injured, it's like what Djokovic said. It's not really about tennis, it's about the body letting you down and not allowing you to play. Like your mind is still there, you're still competitive, you still want to play, your game is there, the strokes are there, but it's the body that lets you down. So I hope that he can heal, try to maybe find solutions to some of these injuries that he has had, even though sometimes it is just bad luck. When you step wrong on a line on the court, there's not much prevention you can do for that. Like you just had bad luck, right? So injuries like that can just be bad luck, but I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. It's going to be tough for him to, win something big for many reasons, including the fact that even though he was up 2-0 against Sinner, does he beat Shelton the next round? Like it's competitive, right? Like so many great players. Maybe he can beat Shelton, but then does he beat Alcaraz in the final? Like that's a big ask, to first of all make it through all these other rounds where you have great opponents, and then also towards the end of the tournament, or maybe, you're one guy early, or maybe one after another, you got to beat both of them, Sinner and Alcaraz, consecutively. That's a huge challenge that even the great Novak Djokovic can't overcome, right? That's going to be very tough, beating both of these guys. We're going to have to wait for somebody to do it. Remember, like back in the day, people used to do it, like an Albanian did this, like he beat Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer. We're going to be waiting for quite a while for somebody to pull this off, because it's going to be the ultimate feat. And unfortunately, for that reason, Dimitrov, I don't know if he can win anything big. I don't think so. All right, guys, let's take a look here. And then we're going to get to the last thing on the board. Thoughts on Raducanu lately? So I talked about Raducanu in some of my videos during Wimbledon, and she's gotten so much better. It's amazing. Like, you should check out my Raducanu video. She's improved a lot, and she's worked very hard. Very unfortunate after that U.S. Open win with injuries and all that, and a lot of pressure. And I made a couple of videos on her. So just type in Intuitive Tennis Raducanu, and I go in depth, and in chronological order, I talk about what's been happening with her. But I'm pleased to see that she's winning a ton of matches. Like prior to Wimbledon this year, she won 17, I think. So she's like not doing anything crazy. Like she's not winning tournaments. She's not even making it to the finals, but she's consecutively like winning matches, quarters here, semi every now and then, round fourth round, or she might only win like one match, but she's winning matches and she's getting her confidence up, and she's doing great. She just needs to continue in this way. I do see that the game now is getting a little bit faster. The one thing that's clear to me when I watch Raducanu is that she's not playing as freely as she did when she won the U.S. Open. She was very aggressive in that tournament. And then after that, I think because of like all this pressure that was on her and all these other things, she lost confidence, and she was playing not as freely, a little bit more tight, and the ball didn't look quite as fast and wasn't going quite as deep. So in this Wimbledon, I saw a little bit more of the old Raducanu. So she's still so young. If she continues like this, I don't know if she's going to win another slam, but I think her results are going to be getting better and better, and she's going to get her ranking up, and we'll see what happens. One thing I will say, though, that the fact that she had courage to win that tournament, the U.S. Open, that's something that very few players have, the courage to go all the way, because that's something that it's not always there. You have to have the courage to go after a big title like that. So if she did it once, if she can find that type of confidence again, she's the type of player that can take big titles if she can find herself playing that level of tennis. She has the mindset of a champion, and she can take big titles because she's done it before. But to get back to that level, she still has to do a lot of winning. She's not even close to that yet to find that level. She's going to have to continue to win and go deep in tournaments and beat highly ranked players and so on, and take titles, smaller titles, to get to that level. All right, let's take another question here from the chat. Could you see Petra Kvitova staying involved with tennis after retirement? It's so funny with WTA players that retire. A lot of them don't stay involved with tennis, right? They do something completely different. So I think it's good when professional players give back to the game, whether it's coaching or it's like starting a podcast. I think Caroline Garcia has a podcast, a really good one. And Petkovic, of course, is very active as an announcer, and I think she writes a column at a magazine or a newspaper, I think. So I think when you have these great players stay in the game in some sort of way and give value to all of us, I think that's great. So hopefully Petra can be involved in tennis. Okay, Nick, what is your thought on center backhand follow through? He really uses left hand like Murray and Albandian. Yes, it's similar to Murray, but it's even more left arm dominant than Murray. I made many videos on center's technique, and you just type in intuitive tennis, center backhand, and you'll see an in-depth tutorial on the center backhand. I go in detail on how he hits. I call it a whip backhand. It's very whippy, that backhand, just like his forehand. Okay. Okay, guys, you know what? I'm gonna take one more question here, and then we're gonna call it. All right, we're gonna call it because it looks like you guys are talking to each other. So it's like I don't really see that many questions in here. I guess I should have put down Q&A. Let's see, one more. Okay, I'll talk about this. Even though I already talked about it, what about Tony Nadal becoming coach of Zverev? I'll finish with that. And it kind of relates to what I was talking about with the Ljubicic thing, right? Remember what I was talking about here? Let him be. And he would give an example of Sinner's parents, how they let Yannick be. So that might be the next step for Zverev, to just let him be. And I know that he was coached by his mom and his dad was there at every tournament for many years. So maybe it's time to just let Zverev be. But I don't know if Zverev wants his parents there or not. That I don't know. I can't tell you that. But I think it's a step in the right direction. To hear a fresh voice, it can do wonders, right? It might not do anything, but it can. It has the potential to ignite something inside of Zverev, and I think Zverev still can do big things. He's got an incredible serve, and the serve improvements are insane. His first serve percentage is out of this world because he hits the serve so incredibly fast. And a lot of people have forgotten how dominant Zverev was last year and how close he got to winning Roland Garros and how spectacular his season was last year. I think he finished number 2 in the world, right? And of course, he made the Australian Open final this year. And that match hurt him a lot. It caused a lot of damage to the mind of Zverev. And he struggled for a long time before starting to play a little bit better. In Munich on clay, he won that tournament. But then he's back to struggling now, lost in a, what is it, second round of Wimbledon or first round of Wimbledon? I don't remember. First round, right? To Rinderknecht, right? Yeah, that was first round. So, again, this could inspire something inside of Zverev, and again, he's got huge potential. He can go deep in big tournaments and challenge these guys. He can. He's one of these guys that could. Of course, even with him, there's a discrepancy in level, and that's, I think, what destroyed him mentally. He felt that in the Australian Open final, that he gave it a good shot in that match, and he just got outplayed. And Sinner was stronger, better, and he felt so far away from winning that match and so far away from a Grand Slam title. I think that's what destroyed him mentally. And that's the challenge for everyone, not only Zverev. As good as Zverev is, that there's just a discrepancy there in level between Sinner and Alcaraz and everyone else. So anyways, let's get to the last topic on the board. That's the Emma versus Andre rematch. And that's not really a topic, it's more of a plug. So I want you to tune in to Intuitive Tennis on Wednesday, I'm going to release the Emma versus Andre rematch. For anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, Emma Burgic is a player that's featured a lot on my channel, with drills, lessons where I'm coaching her, and a lot of matches, interesting matches. And Andre is such an interesting player as a lefty, very fast. He's a former NAIA player. He was a top junior in Sweden. And the first time they played, it was such an incredible match because it was kind of a tight match. A lot of games going over deuce, but Andre found himself up 7-0, if I remember correctly. It was 7-0. And then Emma won one game or two games, if I remember. And that one game that she won was like a marathon game that went on for like 15 minutes. So this match was super entertaining. And despite the score being so lopsided, a lot of people loved this match and thought it was an entertaining match. Great rallies and actually a lot of drama, maybe similar to the Swiatek-Anisimova match. People were wondering whether Emma can get on the board, and win a game finally, being down 7-0 in a pro set. So that's what made that final between Swiatek and Anisimova so interesting, because we all wanted Anisimova to get that one game. And I'm sure some people wanted the 6-0, 6-0, I'm sure. But anyway, rematch coming on Wednesday. Subscribe to Intuitive Tennis if you haven't yet. If you want more Intuitive Tennis, including access to me, I want you to subscribe to Intuitive Tennis Premium. There's going to be a link in the pinned comment of this video. And there's also a link in the description. So sign up for Intuitive Tennis Premium. And I will see you guys in the next live stream, which will be for sure one after the US Open on the following Monday. But I'm sure I'm going to do another live stream before that. So I will see you guys then. Take care.